Missouri, but I'm from Missouri. So yeah,
Right on.
which
I
is
was
why
just
I don't
in,
have a good background. I'm not in my office. Where are you?
I'm in Washington State. So
Oh,
I
okay.
totally get, the bounce and act with traveling and back and forth. I was from San Diego, but I'm in Washington now. So
Ah,
I got back late last night from San Diego visiting the family here. So traveling back
mhm.
and forth, just like you, I know how
Yeah.
that is.
How long do you live in San Diego?
20 years,
Oh, okay.
growing
We
up
were in
there.
California 10 years, so not San Diego area, but San Bernardino area, Anaheim, Fresno. We kind of
Yes,
moved
yes, yes.
around. My kids were born out there. So, yeah.
And then Kansas, how in the world did they get up there then from Cali?
Yeah, so we moved back to Missouri. We were from Missouri, my husband and I, and we moved to California when we got married. And then after we had the kids, we decided to move back to Missouri so they could grow up around family and all of
Yeah.
that. So, but my daughter lives in Kansas City. I live around St. Louis area, and she lives in Kansas City. So I'm up here for the week visiting her. So
Grandkids?
she doesn't have them, but I do have 4.
You have 4
She's not
grandkids.
married. Yeah, she's not married.
Okay.
So
Well, that's always exciting. My
yeah.
my dad always told me, there's something about you kids that I love, but I love the grandkids even more.
Oh gosh, they're so fun. I have triplets. I have triplet grandkids.
What?
And then
That's
they have another little sister, and that's my son, and they live in Texas. So we kind of go
all
both
over, yeah.
both directions. Yeah.
Well, that's the good part about owning a business that you could be remote on, right? You could get to
hmm
travel around and have a good time.
Yeah.
That's
Yes,
always good.
absolutely.
Well, I
Well, thanks for
appreciate
having
you.
me on the show.
Yeah, appreciate you being on. Um, typically the layout of this podcast is I go into just like, what does high performance mean to you?
hmm
And I go into like your origin story, after I ask, well, like, I want you to tell a little bit the audience. So what I do is I do an introduction. Then
hmm
I was like, hey, what does high performance mean to you? And then I go
hmm
into like, how do you serve people? How do you help people? And then we go into the origin story there after like that. And then people can know like how you've been able to build up what you've been able to do. And then
hmm
we can talk about principles and habits of how you've been able to achieve the success that you
hmm
have too.
Sounds good. Who's your audience?
Entrepreneurs, people
Okay.
that want to build an online business.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
I just to give you context, I think there's a lot of you could resonate with this, but I had a marketing agency that I ran for 9 years and then I sold it. And then I
hmm
got into high ticket sales and then I did really well at that because I cared for people, would have
hmm
thought.
hmm
And then I got into training teams and managing teams where we're doing millions a month. And now I help coach people of how to do marketing and sales and build sales teams
Ah,
with a
very
personal
good.
brand and coaching.
Sorry, I'm
So
trying to fix my
I
necklace here so it looks right.
I
Yeah.
think you do some
Oh,
coaching though too. You're an
I
author,
do.
you have a podcast, and you help
Yeah,
coaches and consultants.
yeah,
So very similar niche.
yeah.
What do we want to talk about though mostly? Do we want to talk about your new book that's coming out? Do you want to talk about key aspects of
Mm.
coaching, the
Yeah,
challenges?
I
What
mean,
would you think would be
one
best?
of the things I'm kind of getting back into that I haven't done for a while, well, I have still done it, but I haven't really been promoting it, is do you think most of the people that we're talking to are in successful businesses or growing businesses? And that will kind of give me a direction.
I have both. I have people that's starting and scaling. So it's
Okay.
kind of a mix
Mhm.
of both camps. I think people that
Okay.
are starting out, they see the big vision.
hmm
They're just not there yet because they haven't
Okay.
really fully started. But then I have others that are at scale. They just want to do it better.
Okay.
And kind of,
Yeah, because I could go either direction. So that's why I wondered. So the startups that I work with are people that have successful businesses and they want to go into coaching or consulting. So
cool.
I can help them build out that whole game plan and that whole model. And I help them get really, really high end premium clients. So sometimes multiple 6-figure clients. And but work at so when people talk high ticket, a lot of times they're talking about 5 or 10,000. I'm talking about 50,000, 100,000, $400,000 clients. So that's in both of sides of my business. That's what I do. That's different. Is help people build really premium businesses. But I help them both scale their coaching and consulting or professional service business
Yeah,
in that way, or I help them start that kind of a business. So we could go either way.
I love it. Yeah, let's talk about some of the high level stuff. I think
Mhm.
it'd be cool. Yeah. Anything you don't want to touch on?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Been doing this a long time. There's not much we could, no, it's fine.
Okay. Let's dive into it. If you're ready, we can do it.
Let's go.
All right. We're rolling logistics wise. Let's see. I think we're all good. You're at 1080p. Microphone level's good. Okay. We're set. Let me do a little intro. We'll dive in. Welcome to the podcast. Nathan Newberry here, your host. Super pumped that you guys are listening in. I got Ann Cardin here as a guest. Ann, am I saying that right? Did I say that? You're Carden?
That's
I'm
right.
going to redo that because I wanted to make sure I got
Perfect.
that right because it'd be awful if I got your name wrong.
No, it's
Ann
perfect.
Cardin. Okay. Well, thank you for the welcome to the podcast. Nathan Newberry here, your host. Super pumped that you guys are here listening in. I got Ann Cardin, who is our guest on today's podcast. You guys are going to listen in and hear about her expertise. She's an author. She has her own podcast, and she helps people really get into a career of coaching and consulting at a high level. So not just high ticket offers, but really premium offers. We're going to talk about some of those things toward the end. We're going to talk about some of the tactical things that you can do to build that type of business. So tune in and listen to all the way through. And before you jump in, down below, here's a gift I want to give everybody that's listening in. Down in the show notes, there's this workshop I built out for everybody that's wanting to start or scale how to build their online business and build a personal brand to be able to build something out that's going to give you that freedom that you want in your life and career. Check that workshop out. That's going to really help you out. And I'm super glad that you're here. Jumping into the question here that I ask everybody is, what is high performance? What does that look like? How do you define that in your life and the career that you've had as a major player in this space?
I think high performance is someone that just really has a vision and a goal, and they go for it to such a degree. They are so committed to it. I see a lot of people that are sort of wannabes, or they want to do something, but they just don't go all in. And I've just never been that kind of person. So to me, that's high performance. It's like going all in, going after what it is you want.
I think that's so important because there's so many players, and talk about this too, and that don't pursue their ambition. They sit on the sidelines hoping that something will happen until they have a strategic partner like yourself to mentor them up. How does that kind of play out with some of the students that you've seen or even people that you've dealt with that don't have that strong ambition? They just kind of stay at the status quo or they're okay in their career?
Mm. Yeah, I don't typically work with those kind of people.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, I find that frustrating because I'm not that kind of a person. Like
Mm-hmm.
I built up every business I've ever started, which this is my sixth and seventh that I have. I've sold 5 previous businesses, and so I'm a go-getter. And a lot of people are like, "When are you going to retire?" I'm like actually getting close to retirement age, but I am nowhere. I just invested in another business today. And I just believe like those are the things that kind of drive us. And I just see so many people that aren't like that. And I just, for me, that doesn't work for me. The dynamic I need with my clients they are all in. Like though they light me up, those types of clients light me up, and they love working with me because it's like we can move fast, and I can move as fast as they want to go, and they love that. So yeah.
Give the audience some context of who they're listening into. Like, what do people know you about? Because you're an author, you're a podcaster, you have this business that you have, you're coaching people. Like, talk about some of these things that you do so well.
Yeah, so I've really built up my Expert in You brand and my programs. One of the things that brought me into that is when I decided to step into coaching after this has been about 15 years ago. After I sold my last two, actually, I stepped into coaching before I sold my last 2 businesses. I knew that I wanted to help other people with all the expertise and experience that I had built up. And as a result, I kind of went down some wrong paths when I decided to come into coaching. And I invested in some things that I got value from everything. I always believe you do, but I invested in some things that didn't really take me down the path that I wanted to go and didn't work for me very well. And so I took a step back and I thought, what part of it was I was part of a coaching organization, and they had 200 something business coaches. And everything that they were teaching just really was bringing in the wrong clients to me. It was bringing in people I wasn't loving to work with, kind of those people we just talked about. And I thought, and then the money wasn't there. And I thought, what is wrong with this? And so I was so frustrated. I felt like I wasn't getting to use my real value and my real expertise. So I took a step back and I thought, I'm either going to figure this out or I'm getting out of this because I don't love this. And I got into it because I thought I would love helping other people and doing this. And when I did that, I thought, what do you know, Ann, that you're not doing that you've done in all your other businesses? And I realized you always took the thing that you were so great at and you turned it into a premium model. And it was when I did that, and that's where I came up with my Expert in You framework and my method. And I applied that to my business, and instantly, like, my business blew up overnight. It's like everything I had been trying to do, that wasn't working. And then I started helping other people and it worked for them. And so then this coaching organization saw the success I was having, and they started putting me on their calls and tell everybody what you're doing. And what I found is I was kind of building their business. So I thought, okay, I'll start working with coaches. And at that time, I had been working with small business owners, mostly in trades, contractors, that kind of thing. So I thought, okay, I'm building their business. Maybe I need to start working with the coaches. Clearly, there's a path here. And they were sending all these coaches to me, and I would say, well, what was your background? Because they'd say, Ann, I'm struggling. I'm not making any money. What was your background? Let's leverage that. And they would say, I was a music teacher. And you're trying to be a business coach, like you're trying to coach people. It just was such a disconnect for me. And I thought, this is just not even in integrity, in my opinion. So I said, why don't we take what you're really great at and let's see how we can model a business around that. And that's how it all just happened. And so I've been doing that ever since. I mean, I work with surgeons who want to go into coaching or consulting in some capacity, and I help them craft that. I work with CEOs that come out of corporate that want to go into coaching or consulting or build some sort of a professional service business. And that's really just how that all kind of generated. But out of that, I've also built out a marketing agency that we're getting ready to really explode. So it's an influence kind of marketing agency where we'll write their book and we'll launch their podcast and do different things like that to build that brand. So
how did you start all of this? I mean, how did you get into it? Like, to bring us back to that moment that you knew you were a little bit different. Were you selling Girl Scout cookies at the beginning?
I did do all that. I made my first money this is so funny. This actually came out on a podcast. I didn't even remember this, but I was maybe 7 or 8 years old in our we had a neighborhood, kind of a subdivision. And I learned how to make these paper mache balloons where you tear up tissue paper and you soak it in flour and water glue and you put it on a balloon. And then when it dries, you pop the balloon and you've got it sounds so crazy, but yeah, I'm old. So what can I say? So I learned how to make these. So I thought, I'm going to teach the kids in the neighborhood how to make these. But I had cost. I had materials that I had to buy. So I charged everybody. I charged the kids in the neighborhood and they came into my basement and I taught them all in these craft classes how to make this stuff. And that was when I realized on this podcast, wow, I was an entrepreneur even at 8 years old. Yeah. But I always made my own money. Even as a kid, I always found ways. Like, I sold flower seeds and I sold garden seeds door to door. And I was a Girl Scout, although I didn't get paid to do that, but I sold cookies. So I've always been in marketing and sales in some capacity. I've always made my own money, even from little on, babysitting or cleaning houses or whatever that was. But I did go the corporate route for 13 years in business. I was in business management and retail. And got out of that when I had kids and wanted to be a mom. And financially, we were struggling. And that was when my first real business started. So, yeah.
I hear quite a bit people talk about this, and I want to get your expertise on it, where it's like, focus on one thing and do it really well. And then after you built it, then you can move on. Mm-hmm. But there's this part that's hard for an entrepreneur to stay committed to one lane because they have all these ideas and dreams, but then they do burn themselves and they spend too much time on too many things and never become an expert and never make any money. Where's that line for you? Because you have multiple business right now with a solidarity of fixing your eye on focusing on one thing letting it grow, and then afterward
Yeah.
diversifying into other platforms. What do you think about that?
I've always done that,
Okay.
always. And that is really why I've had success. With my first business, it was a craft doll business, which sounds crazy, but crafts were exploding across the country. I needed something where I could work from home. At that time, we didn't have the internet. This was 35 years ago. And there was a little store in town that did consignment. And I thought, okay, I can make some things and I can make some money. And there was financial hardship. So I started making some things and they didn't sell. And I went into the store. She goes, "You can come pick them up." Like nothing
Yeah.
sold. And I thought, oh boy, what am I going to do now? There wasn't a lot of opportunity. We lived out in the country in a small town, outside of a small town. She said, "These rabbit dolls are selling." And I thought, a rabbit doll? I have no idea how to make a rabbit doll, but I'm going to figure it out. So I bought my mom's sewing machine. I went and looked at a whole lot of patterns and different things. And I went home and I designed a doll. It took off. And long story short, I did that business 7 years. It went global. I was shipping all over the world. I had multiple people working for me. But I stayed focused on that. When I expanded that business, I started doing my designs in patterns. And now that was a whole nother revenue stream. So I would expand as I would make money. I would expand into more stores. I started advertising in international magazines, but I still stayed very focused on what I was doing. I would just create new designs and would be creative within that same core
Mm-hmm.
business. But then when I ventured out and I started doing the pattern designs, that was a whole nother business but it was a whole nother revenue stream, but it was also a whole nother business, really.
Mm-hmm.
They were connected. And I believe that when you expand out and they influence each other, it's your faster path. So I did that with that. I did it when I went into fitness and I started my fitness business. I continued to grow that fitness business, add on, keep expanding that until I brought in a full blown weight loss business, which ran separately, but they fed each other.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't disconnected. They actually complemented each other, but they were still run by separate teams, separate employees. But we worked it where they fed each other. So just an idea, Nathan, back then, I even created, this was, I don't know, 20 years ago, I had a $12,000 fitness program. That was unheard of back then, but it was the way I was able to take what I was doing and expand that to the point where it just made so much sense. So that's when I talk about it was always premium. I
Mm-hmm.
learned that, way back when, and I had my first $1 million offer called Body Blast when I was in fitness 20 something years ago. So I learned that, but I've done that in every business. I did that in my coaching and consulting. The reason I have my Expert in You media and marketing agency now that we're getting ready to really expand on is that came natural as I was working with these coaches and consultants. I wanted them to start a show. I wanted them to write their book. I wanted them to speak on stages and build a really influential brand. And I was sending them other places to go get those services done. So I said, okay, I'm going to build my own team. Now I have another business, but I also don't have to send them out. I've vetted these people. These are people I trust. They're people that I know will do a great job for my clients. And it was another way of revenue for me, but it also was helpful for them and I could save them a lot of money because number one, they wouldn't make the mistakes trying to find people, but also I could save them money just because of the team that I had built. So now that's become its own business. But again, staying very focused, to me, that is the only way to really grow to any degree and become well known as well.
Mm-hmm.
That was
I
a
think
lot.
no, I appreciate you telling us that because I think that gives some context with some of the questions I have. Because many times people have, they relate their entrepreneurship journey to some ADHD, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because and people take it either to the extreme. It's like, well, that's my superpower. I
Mm-hmm.
relate to that, or they use it as a crutch and they never get far.
Yeah.
And I lean toward looking at it as like the way I'm wired is helping me stay focused with that. It's very hard for many entrepreneurs, especially
Mhm.
starting out. I think people that have been doing it a while, they realize those boundaries that they have to create to stay
Mhm.
laser like focused. What
Yeah.
are some of the things that you've had to build around you to really stay focused or build areas? It sounds like fitness is maybe an area that kind of helped you stay aligned, not only in your offer, but probably some clarity around being a super mom and
Mhm.
balancing everything. Like, where were some things that you dealt with or built around you to really kind of stay really aligned with your offer and your passion and your focus?
Yeah, I love this question. It's interesting. I haven't been asked this, and so this is really coming to my mind. One thing that I really believe has helped me a lot is I have found ways to be creative inside of my core business.
Hmm.
So, for example, when I was in fitness, my employees, I used to drive them crazy because I am a bit ADHD. I know I am. And so
Yeah.
I've had to learn because you have a creative mind, right, as an
Mhm.
entrepreneur, but then you also have this sort of driven mind as well. And so it's interesting, all the businesses I've ever done, I've had a creative side to it. And for me, that's what's worked. So I remember about every 3 months was about as long as I could go without doing something new, but it never got off my main business. So for example, in my fitness business, I would go away and I would do like 2 or 3 day stints where I would just think, like I would just come up with ideas. And so my team, my employees always knew when I went, and they would be like, "Oh no, Ann went away again for 3 months or for 3 days." I'd come back and I'd have all these ideas like, okay, this is what we're going to do. But they were all still related to the business. They were just another way to expand inside the business. So I found ways to creatively expand, but not get out of the main business. So, like, I didn't go off and start another business, it was all related. So maybe I'd start a new class, or I'd start a new program, or I would add some new equipment, or I'd say, you know what, I'm going to bring it. I remember bringing in spinning. And I remember I did a lot of bootstrapping too along the way. And I remember before I brought in those spin bikes, like this was a new thing. They had just come out. It was very expensive to bring in to buy spin bikes at that time. And I thought, okay, before I just go out and just dump the money, I'm going to make sure people want to do this. And I was going to be the first one in our local market at that time to bring those in. So I actually created the program. I did the math. I mapped it all out. I spent literally a couple of days. Okay, how would I structure this? How much money do I need to get the bikes and then make it profitable? And so I mapped out the whole game plan, strategized, and I literally went out into my club and I sold it. And I said, this is what I'm going to be. This is what I want to do. This is all around it, what it's all about. If you want to buy into the program, I said, if I get enough people interested, I'll buy the bikes. I'll bring them in. This is what we're going to do. If I don't, I'm going to return your money. And people paid and they bought into that before I ever bought the bikes. So all those bikes were bought with other people's money. They were not even bought
Very
with my
smart.
money. Yeah. So I've done that, things like that. So look, but those are ways to be creative that kind of drive you, and it's exciting. So I find ways to get excited inside of my core business. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. I want to ask you a question too about, like, right now you could retire and just chill and be with your grandkids and
Mm-hmm.
your family and really like this. How do you balance everything here with the drive that you have, but also realizing, hey, I can enjoy life now? How do you end up balancing or sorting through now that you've had a very successful life and a business, you're an author, you have all these things? How do you look and take stock of the past now compared to now? And maybe what would you do on this journey if you were able to do it again?
Yeah, you know, I didn't have all the access to things we have today, right? All the internet and all that. Like that's been a total game changer, which has given me the freedom. I do all the things I want to do in my business. You can probably see my boring white wall here. If you're watching the video, I am at my daughter's this week. I told you. And, I travel, I go see my grandkids in Texas. I'm with my daughter. We just did a big birthday party for my husband a week ago. So I travel and I do all the things that I want. And that wasn't always a lot of the businesses I originally built were, except for my first one, but they were brick and mortar. And until the internet came on, we didn't have this kind of opportunity. So now you don't really necessarily have to have that. You don't have to have a brick and mortar business to have a business, right? You can have a business working anywhere. So I don't know if there's anything I would have done differently, really, because it just wasn't available. But um, it's also probably the reason why I'm not like super excited to retire. I have people say, Ann, when are you going to retire? Why would I? Like, I'm having fun. I work as much as I want to work or as little as I want to work. I get to travel. I get to do all the things I want. I mean, to
Yeah.
me, that's balance for me in my life. I love it.
You help a lot of coaches and consultants now with building their business. What are some like tactics that you help people walk through to really be able to anchor in that premium thing?
Mhm.
And what you described to me is it's not like the high ticket offer where it's like 5 to 10K. It's like ultra premium.
Mhm.
How do you end up going there? And then what are some tactical things that you help people walk through to really design that offer?
Yeah. So one of the things that I see is people come from, they have expertise, they have skills, they have value, but they sort of fall into some of the online world traps, the funnels and things. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with any of that. I just don't teach a volume business. I teach a premium business. So I extract the value that they have. So we will do one of the things I have people do before they work with me is it's kind of like a brain dump in a way. They fill out forms that give me all of their everything they've done and what awards have you won and what have you done and what have you been what have been the results you've had with clients, and if they are in coaching, or what's been your experience. So they kind of do almost like a expertise dump or a brain dump for that. And then we start looking at, okay, what are the things you really love and what are the things you really want to do, like what are the things that light you up, and we start crafting that into something that can become very high value. And when we do that, then we just determine who would that be for, where does that align, how do you want to work, how much do you want to work, like all of that becomes part of that whole strategy. But I mean, it's so amazing to me how many people are selling things for, they're giving, like literally giving away their services for such small amounts of money. And there's a premium market out there that would pay them hundreds of thousands of dollars. Um, can I tell you a story?
Yes, yes, please.
So I was on somebody's podcast one day, and she was running a social media marketing agency. And we're talking about just this. We're talking about, people giving away their value, and they don't charge for their best stuff. A good example is a social media manager that knows how to do strategy and things like that, but they give that away to get the client. And so I was just kind of talking about this. And I mean, it was like I saw it on her face the minute I said this. And she said, "Oh my gosh." In fact, I'm putting this in my book now, this story. She said, "I have been giving away my biggest value for free." And
Mm.
she was brilliant. She had a psychology background, and she could actually help clients get people almost 85% sold by her copy and the stuff and she was giving that away.
Mm.
So after that call, she said, "Okay, we need to work together. I need help packaging and how to market and sell that." So long story short, she went back to a client that she was making a few $1,000s, an existing client she was making a few $1,000s a month on. And when we restructured all that, she turned that into a $413,000 client. That's what I'm talking about when I say people give that away. So it's about really discovering what that value is. What is the value to the client? And then what is your expertise? How are you different? It sounds like the same basic stuff that people are creating for high ticket. Okay, what's the value you're doing and how are you different? And it's all the same things, but it's just at another level.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a piece of what you do, it's the best of what you do, if that makes sense. That makes sense.
How do you balance like the cost ratio? I mean, there's the high ticket offer in the space of like 5 to 10K, 20 to 30, but then you're offering like 40, 50, $100,000 offers.
Mm-hmm.
How do you justify that with the clients you have? It's not is it a mindset thing that they need to just get over, that just they need to have that ticket offer with an extra zero to it? How do you go about teaching people that it's okay to charge premium amount? And then how do you acquire those clients that say, yeah, sure, I'll cut you a $50,000 check? How do you go about that?
Yeah, I really, again, I walk them through a process, and I'm happy to share this. I've shared it on other shows. So here's an example. I have a client I was working with, and he was charging, I don't know, 12 or $15,000 was his top package, and he was brilliant. Like, he had a PhD. He had been years with a PhD. He was working in universities. He wanted to work with university tech teams in leadership and all those things. And so as I started helping him refine, you do have to restructure your offer so it makes sense, right? So you can articulate that sale. But as we were doing that, I said, what number like lights you up? And he said, because I always want to know like where, like what feels good to them, right? Now, that's always just a starting place. Like that might be the low end of what we do. But I said, what number lights you up? He goes, I'd love like 60,000. I don't know why 60,000 sounds great to me. He said, but I'm so scared to charge that. So after we got everything put together, and he said, I feel really great about this, but 60,000. And I said, okay, first of all, you're not selling from your wallet. Okay. You're not the person buying. So, like, you have to get over that part. Okay. That makes sense. I said, when you have worked with clients in the past in this capacity, I said, give me an example. When I already knew this, but I'm just walking you through the process. Give me an example of what was the result of that client. And he said, well, when I worked with this one person, he was actually able to go from about $100,000 a year job to a $350,000 a year job. I said, do you think that client would have paid you 60,000 for that? He goes, well, yeah, and I said, but now you're talking about working in a university with tech teams. I said, do they have budgets? And he said, oh, they have big budgets. And I said, do you see how what you're thinking about the 60,000 doesn't make sense? Like, it doesn't align with what you're trying to go after here. And that was it. I mean, that was all it took for him. So it's walking them through and getting them to see. I mean, I helped a mindset coach go from making $1,200 for a 90-day package to $50,000 clients. Because she had this whole other side of brilliance where she could take mindset work and put it into sales teams. And she never even thought about doing that. And so when we moved her into that, she was able, and she loved it. She was able to now get a client, get that client for 50,000 who re-upped with her in, another year. So it's getting them to understand and see that it isn't about their wallet. It's about the people they're helping and what is the value to them. So I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, I think a lot of people listening in here are either wanting to start their online business,
Mm-hmm.
or they're trying to really find a way, like you're talking about professionals trying to figure out, hey, I have a lot to give. I'm
Mm-hmm.
in my career. I'm wanting to either add this as a second layer to be like a CEO or a doctor, like you're saying, that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
transitioned out of those main roles to being a coach or offer of sorts like that. What are some tactical things now being in the digital age that
Mm-hmm.
they need to set up on some tactical things that you really feel like are real important for people to have and start
Mm-hmm.
building and working on?
Well, you have to set up your social media. So I say you have to have an expert platform.
Yeah.
And if you're going to charge premium client or get premium fees, you have to be seen as an expert and authority, which I know you see that out there, but I mean, you really do. So I recommend one of the things we will do is we'll write an expert book for them, which can be a lead generation book, but it also lends that credibility. And it's around what their main core offer is going to be. So now it's really easy for them to go out and speak. It's really easy for them to get on podcasts because we can take that, we can give them that bestseller. And now they just have that credibility, and they've already got all of their experience to back it up. So when you put all that out into the online world, you can start building that expert platform. And that truly can get people started very, very quickly. It's so easy today. I mean, back when I started my coaching and consulting, I got my first clients because I was out there networking, doing all of that. And people knew I had sold businesses, and they knew me in the business community. I was networking with business owners. So when I decided to step into coaching, I said, and I didn't charge a lot. I said, hey, I just want to see if my skills will transfer and if I can help you. It was only the first couple of clients, and I said, oh my gosh, I'm charging way too little because the impact was so big. But it's so much easier today because we just have all of this available. But you've got to build that expert platform. And even if you are not just getting started, but you haven't done this, you need to do that because look, you're irrelevant if you're not online. And I know you know this, Nathan.
Yeah.
We're on here, right? I have a show, and you are irrelevant if you're not doing that, because even if people aren't hanging out online, they are searching online. And if you don't have that strong footprint that makes you stand out, you're just in a sea of sameness. You cannot stand out. You just look like everybody else. None of those things are going to help people really grow fast, or they're not going to help them get the best prices. You'll end up with what I call sort of the leftovers.
How important is this to have an offer like that, to be on stages, to write a book, to have a podcast? How important is that for them to build out and start doing?
Very.
Okay.
It's very important. If you're going to have somebody pay you, $400,000, you have to. Now she didn't have a book, but she was still very out there, and so we started building out those assets for her so she could get more of those clients. So you maybe don't have to get your first client, maybe not, but it is important because again, if you're going to get paid those kind of fees, those are people that are looking for the best.
Yeah.
And so I can't say that enough. To me, I call that high impact marketing. Everything I teach my clients is high impact marketing. It's how can you build your visibility and your credibility and trust at the same time you're building, like you're being seen everywhere and you're being seen as an expert and an authority. To me, that's the best kind of marketing, where the reach is big, the visibility is big, and like a podcast, right? And the credibility is big.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that kind of encompassed into one thing.
You get some people that say, hey, it's always hard to learn this new thing, to be online, to put myself out there, to write a book, and all the energy and time it would take for me to create reels and YouTube videos and podcasts and stuff. Like, how do you walk people through the importance of them learning that and getting involved in those worlds?
Yeah, it's not a necessity. I mean, it's not an option anymore. So if you want to be in business, it's just part of the business world. I mean, the business landscape has changed. It just has. And all those businesses that I did, the marketing wasn't my favorite thing. But hey, if I wanted business and I wanted to grow my business, I had to do the marketing. I had to do the sales, right? Over time, you get to where you love it. Like, I bet you feel this way, Nathan. My podcast and being on podcasts is one of my favorite things to do in my business. So just because it doesn't start out that you like it, like anything and everything you do when you first start is hard. I remember my first Facebook Live 15 years ago. I've talked about this. Oh my gosh, I was shaking. I was just shaking. And I thought, okay, if it's really bad, I'll just pull it down, right? And you have to just decide what you want. And if you want these are the steps. I'm sorry, like it or not like it. I mean, I'm pretty bold and upfront about that. And I make sure that the people I'm working with, because I made the mistakes of taking on people that weren't willing to do the marketing. They weren't willing to do, and I couldn't help them. And they were the only people I never got, that didn't get the results. So now I'm very selective about the people I bring on, and I let them know up front what it is going to take. And if they're not all in to do that, then I'm not the person to work with them. Maybe someone else is. So, but you have to, it's part of the game.
I love that. I love that. And how can people follow you and connect with you further? What's the best
Yes.
way for people to do that?
First of all, you can Google me and take your pick. I have a YouTube channel. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm big on LinkedIn. But you can go to my website at annlcarden.com if you want to. And if you actually want to get a training around really premium clients and even having 100K days, like I talk about a lot, you can go to a free training, 30 minutes that I have called it's expertinu.biz. And you can opt in for that. You can get instant access. It's just a quick video training, and you can kind of see some of the things I'm talking about.
Perfect. I'll put that down below. Everybody go follow Ann, go connect with her. I appreciate her being on and you guys learning from some expert here and expert advice here of how to grow your online business. It's real important. Go down to the links below. And again, thank you for tuning into today's podcast, and we will see you on the next episode.
Thank you. Bye-bye.